Hello and welcome back to What If Weekly, your Marvel Studios news roundup. We've got news from Daredevil Born Again, Marvel Phase 5, and a big dollop of Guardians of the Galaxy goodness. I'm your host, trying to explain to my boss how these two aliens were so cool that I let them take our entire stock encyclopedia, so let's get into it. Michael Gandolfini, son of James Gandolfini, who played a younger version of his father's Sopranos character in The Many Saints of Newark, has apparently been cast in Daredevil Born Again, with his character described as a kid from Staten Island with big dreams. While initially I would have thought he'd be able to play a young Kingpin, no flashback scenes about Fisk are currently expected. No information is available as to what role he will be playing, but apparently the discussion includes the potential for a recurring role in other MCU projects. Marvel Studios is said to be re-evaluating after the limited reception to Phase 4, with the constant timetable changes having led to talks breaking down with some actors and directors behind the scenes. We already know that Blade is being wholly rewritten, but Thunderbolts and New World Order are apparently facing a rewrite as well. Whether this is to maintain quality across Phase 5 or to more closely tie the two films together is unclear. Harrison Ford's General Ross is confirmed for New World Order, and the Thunderbolts are assumed to be named for him, so I expect to see him reprise the role there. Marvel Studios are also said to be discussing a creative oversight position to keep the quality levels of the MCU going forwards on the up and up. Whether this leads to creators feeling stifled, or if this is the boost the series needs, is unclear. Now we get to the meat of the matter, the Guardians of the Galaxy, who had a trailer drop this week for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, as well as the recently released holiday special. First to the special, which had some big bombshells to drop on us. We had the first appearance of Maria Bakalova as Cosmo, the telepathic telekinetic dog who first appeared in the post-credits of the original Guardians, as well as being part of the team in the What If episode featuring them. Cosmo is based on the real dog Laika, who was sent into space by Russian cosmonauts, and will be returning in Volume 3, where she is expected to be joining the Guardians. Amidst all of the holiday chaos, we get to see the new look for Groot, who is much bulkier and wider than the last we saw him, and much more so even than the adult form of Groot who we saw in Guardians 1, who, as you'll remember, died saving his friends, and the Groot we've been following has been his offspring. The Guardians are holed up and rebuilding Nowhere, which they say they've bought from the Collector, which is very interesting because he was assumedly killed by Thanos in Infinity War. Nowhere is assumed also to be the headed Celestial, with its brain fluid being mined for use by the inhabitants. Talking of Celestials, maybe even the same one, Ego is revealed to not only be Peter Quill's father, but also Mantis's, making them brother and sister, which is sure to add even more emotional charge to the family-fueled dynamics of the Guardians. Mantis gets a big spotlight in the special, showing off her impressive reflexes and fighting prowess, even using her empathic sleep ability while being shot at. Now this new trailer for the new Guardians movie begins with the team in full costume, the classic red and blue of one of Star-Lord's most classic outfits. They say they're returning somewhere, and they arrive on what looks like Earth in the 1980s, but turns out to be filled with animal-human hybrid creatures. This is likely Counter-Earth, a planet created by this film's villain, the High Evolutionary, where he can experiment to his heart's content. Though I would wager this Counter-Earth is probably not just hiding in the same orbit as Earth, but just behind the sun always, like in the comics, as it looks like the team has to use some kind of organic gateway to get there. The Guardians approach the organic portal in iconic block-colour spacesuits, in what will definitely be one of the most memorable scenes of the movie. We see the origin of Rocket Raccoon, who was experimented on profusely by the High Evolutionary, and a similar looking otter hybrid named Lila, who was listed in an Easter egg in the first film as one of Rocket's associates. Rocket says he's done running, and later in the trailer we see Peter crying over a hospital bed, and then Peter and Groot shooting back to back in a scene that to me feels absent of the normal Rocket-Groot team-up we've seen in so many films. I think as this is James Gunn's swan song at Marvel, that this will also be Rocket's, and maybe some other characters who survived the film may end up avoiding the Guardian's life. Gamora, who we know from this summer's panels will be a leader of the Ravagers, is looking at a Polaroid picture, assumedly of the life that the Gamora of this timeline lived, that she did not. It's going to be hard both for the team to accept that she's not the same person, but also for her to see the family she always dreamed of as reality, but she doesn't quite fit in. And finally, we get a shot of one of the most powerful Marvel characters, who was teased way back in 2017, Adam Warlock, who, although sheened with gold, is much darker in coloration than Ayesha and the rest of the Sovereign. In the comics, after his creation, Adam is given the name Warlock by the High Evolutionary, and convinced to think for himself and side with the High Evolutionary over his creators. Warlock eventually turns against him and fully becomes a hero, who was even considered a god for a while and wielded the Infinity Gauntlet, being a prominent part of the original Gauntlet storyline and many other Infinity-based storylines going forwards. That's all the time we've got for this edition of What If Weekly. What do you think about all of the interesting Guardians lore we're getting into? Do you think the Guardians team will exist come Kang Dynasty and Secret Wars? And who do you think that Michael Gandolfini could be playing in Daredevil? I've been Encyclopedia, and until next time, stay strong, true believers.